This is one of our favourite gardens to seek out planting inspiration. It's the tranquil and intriguing 7 acres of Great Compt Garden, which surrounds a private 17th century manor house in the Kent countryside of southeast England. This unique garden opened 55 years ago and was the vision and creation of former owners, the late Joy and Eric Cameron. Since 2000, the garden has been sympathetically curated by William Dyson, the UK's foremost salvia expert. So within the different garden rooms and landscapes, there's a great range of pretty salvias to appreciate, amongst other equally covetable flowers, shrubs and trees, in both wilder areas and formal borders. Here are some of the inspirational features that different areas of the garden have to offer. The Italian garden has an atmospherically moody sense of drama, yet the theatricality is not for a crowded audience, but for quiet, secluded appreciation and contemplation. To recreate this feeling in any garden, there are 3 essential elements. Firstly, a soothing water feature for stress-reducing sound. Gently babbling water can beneficially engage our perception and attention away from the intrusive traffic sounds and neighbourhood noise. It can be very effective on a small scale, as demonstrated this year at the Chelsea Flower Show. In a study published this May, scientists found that water sounds were even more effective at reducing stress than birdsong. The second element of the Italian garden is a gently embracing sense of enclosed rooms, almost of being in green cloisters. Eric Cameron personally built the garden walls from local stone, but the lush and abundant atmosphere comes from the use of plants to create architecture and screens. Evergreens are clipped into formal edging, while the living fountains of tall ornamental grasses like Miscanthus offer a wilder feel and long seasonal interest. Elsewhere in the garden, we also loved the sunshine splashes of lilies planted to curve pleasingly around grasses. The larger Miscanthus are undeniably a big space-demanding statement, but a sense of screening and seclusion in a small area can be achieved with colourful climbers such as clematis scrambling up supports. Add an exotic element with large subtropical foliage in summer, or choose hardy lookalikes such as Fatsia japonica. And larger salvias can help create privacy. Dreamy drifts of blue and white campanula and spars of Acanthus Mollis are tall enough to add a sense of being softly enveloped amongst clouds of flowers. Classical-inspired statuary is the third defining element of this garden, although there are playful modern touches too. Admittedly, the fabulous Corinthian column is not a practical option for most gardens or budgets. Statues are highly desirable for Italian garden atmosphere and a certain gravitas, but equally a single classical-themed urn nods to the Italian Renaissance garden aesthetic, as does stone effect seating adorned with classical motifs. In smaller gardens, one single statement statue or container can be more effective than a number of smaller pieces, and salvage and reclamation yards, local second-hand ads and websites, and garden auctions are great options for sourcing these, not only for the more affordable price tag, but also because the older, mossier, more weather-aged, more worn and torn the pieces look, the better the air of authenticity and convincing sense of interest and history, sometimes a bit like people. We also love the way this green engulfing magnolia only reveals its secret statue through the bare branches of winter, an idea that could translate to any garden with a deciduous tree or shrub in view of a pathway or window that slowly unveils a seasonal surprise as leaves are lost in autumn. The square lawn at Great Comp has contrasting hot and cool herbaceous borders, so it's the perfect place to appreciate the powerful influence of planting palettes on human mind and mood, and to decide, even if it is hypothetical, which you would rather create, a cool, calm, chilled out palette, or sizzle with a hot and fiery fiesta of a border. But we're not raising the temperature just yet. The cool border offers a misty drift of blues and pinks with deep purple foliage and soft silver variegated grasses. The effect is romantic and relaxed as you sense your blood pressure lowering and feel at peace with your surroundings, drifting along in a blue sea with a hint of more to come with pink penstemons, magenta plume thistle and blue asters, readying to fully open as summer progresses. But there is still enough cool-toned pink passion to make your heart flutter with marvellous Mystic Dreamer. This cool-toned scheme of predominantly blues, purples, pinks, greens and silvers can make a garden feel larger as the harmonious colours not only flow into one another, but recede rather than leaping out at the eye, so expanding the perceived space. In the hot border on the other side of the square lawn, the vibrantly warm and glowing planting has an entirely different psychological effect. It's buzzy, pulse-quickening, temperature-raising, and it's only just beginning to smoulder in early July. As the summer progresses, flame-coloured petals really begin to burn, maintaining a tonal heat wave into autumn. Another of Eric Cameron's evocative creations using stone and sand excavated while digging the garden is a series of charming follies in the form of ruined stone buildings. This ruin overlooking the crescent lawn can be climbed into, which is a good thing because ruins tend to be irresistible, and not just for the elevated viewpoint, but because they stir the imagination. It's not enough to let your eyes ascend a little staircase leading nowhere. You want to physically take those steps and imagine yourself exploring some ancient crumbling fortification. And this led us to reflect on how so much of our experience in a garden depends on imagination. Once we were exploring a little park in Brussels, and the gardener told us that many tourists cup the roses in their hands, inhale deeply, and remark on how delightful the fragrance is. But in reality, the rose had no scent. And the relevance of this story is that the folly, so wonderfully and charmingly constructed as it is, also depends on our imagination and the whole curious, exciting, or romantic associations we carry around in our minds about Gothic ruins, or dilapidated castles, or fallen dynasties. And the other element that makes it so charming is the surrounding planting, busily alive with pollinators, that perhaps reminds us that nature goes about her business while kingdoms rise and fall. Here are some of those very lovely flowers for planting inspiration and nature going about her business. The woodland areas at Great Combe in May have a dreamlike quality as you find yourself enveloped in honeyed spice clouds of azalea perfume along the route, and the freshness of the green canopy above makes azalea and rhododendron flowers appear all the more technicolor. On this Maytime woodland tour, we'll wander along to the classical temple that stands in the secluded southwest corner of the garden. The creators of Great Combe, Joy and Eric Cameron, apparently rolled each of the temple columns from the delivery point at the forecourt of the house to the place where the temple was to be constructed in the furthest corner of the garden. Such was the willpower to realise their vision. This story prompted us to acknowledge that sometimes we think about and plan the jobs to do in the garden, when really what it takes is just to get stuck in and get things rolling. planting and landscaping around the north lawn at Great Comp creates a feeling of relaxed formality, with the charming 17th century architecture of the manor house as a focal point in its pleasingly warm tones of lime-washed brick amongst the avenue of green foliage. Balustrade on the top terrace and backdrop of sharply clipped yew provide clear structure. But the symmetry of the hardscaping is softened by Mexican daisies, allowed to freely seed in steps and paving, charmingly paired with shrubby salvia chalk white. We love this perfectly complementary combination of delicate fringe cup spires with the purple splash hearts of Persicaria. Acanthus Mollis looks fabulous against bronze foliage. In contrast to the lush, gentle architecture of ferns in soothing greens, there are show-off daylilies immediately stealing the attention with their sublime painterly starburst petals. Fringes of the garden have a wilder feel, proving that native wildflowers have their own delicate beauty, as well as ornamental plants. In the distance, you can see the white cowls of a Kent oast house, hinting that this was once a property with farmland and acres of hop fields. The house has a fascinating history, and in the early 20th century it was a centre of national significance for women's cricket and women's hockey. The sports fields are no longer in existence, but the cricket ground was described as one of the loveliest in the country. Please find links below for more information. Bambooserie. The word is one of those lovely, faintly silly-sounding names that give a ridiculous sense of satisfaction. To repeat, Bambooserie, 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 Bambooserie. If you're a forest lover with no suitable space for trees, the Bambooserie is a place for inspiration, because tall bamboo varieties in the right planting conditions will quickly create a green canopy, provide gently swaying movement in the breeze, along with the soothing whisper of rustling leaves, and offer year-round shelter for insect life, which in turn brings birds into the garden. And by selecting clump-forming rather than spreading varieties, plants will be relatively maintenance-free. Bamboo plants can be left in a more natural form, as enjoyed at Great Comp, or if you have the time and inclination, the lower leaves can be stripped away to reveal beautiful canes, or leaves can be removed in sections for tiers of foliage, and canes can be thinned for the degree of light required. The Bambooserie was designed by William Dyson and built by British service veterans who gained specialist knowledge in addition to the therapeutic benefits of working in a natural environment, leaving a beautiful evergreen oasis for others to explore and enjoy, adding to the existing legacy of the garden.